Welcome back, boys and girls, to another math class. Today we are going to look at the chapter decimals, and you can find this in your Learning Ladders textbook as chapter decimals. You can find it on page number 64 in your term book. Alright, what are decimals? You already learned about decimals in your previous grade. Let's revise what you've learned earlier and also learn a few more new things in this chapter. What are decimals? Decimals are nothing but special fractions. And these fractions have denominators 10, 100, 1000 and so on. So decimals are fractions or numbers expressed in decimal form. Now, what is the place value of a whole number? We know the place value of a whole number. We've learned it in our previous grades. We have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands and so on. But if you look at the place value of a decimal number, it's going to be a little different. Have a look at this place value chart. As you can see, on the left we have 10 lakh, 1 lakh, 10,000, 1,000, hundreds, tens and ones. Now that is your whole number part. You learned this in your previous grades. After that we have something called the decimal point. You know that every decimal number has a decimal point, and we place the decimal point there, and then to the right of the decimal point you can see the place value of the decimal places. Alright, so we have the tens place, we have the hundreds place, and we have the thousands place. Let's take an example so that you will understand this concept better. Here's the number. How do we read that number? 10,35,421.356. Now if you place each of those digits in the place value chart, this is how it will look. As you can see, you have 1 in the 10 lakh place, 0 in the 1 lakh place, 3 in the 10,000s place, 5 in the 1000s place, 4 in the hundreds place, 2 in the tens place, 1 in the ones place, and then you have the decimal point, and then we write the remaining decimal numbers. So we have 3 in the tens place, that is the first decimal place is the tens place, then we have 5 in the hundreds place and 6 in the thousands place. And as we saw earlier, how do we read this? We read this as 10,35,421 and 356 thousands. That is one way to read it. Or you can also read it as 10,35,421.356. Now, decimal fractions having denominator 10 are called tens. For example, 5 by 10, we can write it as 5 tenths. Or you can also write 5 by 10 as 0.5. So if you can notice, these decimals having denominator 10 have only one decimal place. Decimal fractions having denominator 100 are called hundreds. For example, 3 by 100 will be 0.03. As you can see, the denominator is 100. We will have 2 decimal places. Now can you guess what happens when the denominator is 1000? That's right, we will have 3 decimal places. And numbers having denominator 1000 are called thousands. And decimal fractions having denominator 1000 are called thousands. For example, 15 by 1000 can be written as 0.015. So as you can see, we have 3 decimal places. Now what about mixed fractions? That's right, mixed fractions having denominators 10, 100 and 1000 will have a whole number part and a decimal part. Let's take an example. If you can see 27 1 by 100, correct? That's a mixed fraction. So what is the whole number part? That's right, 27. So we can write that as 27 plus 0.01, that is 1 by 100 is 0.01, and that is 27.01. Notice, because the denominator is 100, we have 2 decimal places, 0 and 1. So that's why it is 27.01. Let's take a look at another example. 13 2 by 1000. Now this can be written as 13 plus 0.002. Because it is 1000, we have 3 decimal places. And 13 plus 0.002 is 13.002. So the important thing for us to notice, for us to remember is this, that if the denominator is 10, the decimal fraction will have 1 decimal place. If the denominator is 100, we will have 2 decimal places, and if the denominator is 1000, we will have 3 decimal places.
Alright,
Let's look at what are like and unlike decimals. You've seen it in your previous grade, but let's have a look at it once again. Now, decimals having the same number of decimal places are called like decimals. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. 7.03, 2.12, 14.63. Now these are like decimals because they have the same number of decimal places, 2 decimal places. Alright. Unlike decimals are those decimals having different number of decimal places. For example, 6.4, 13.75, 26.235. Have a look at these 3 numbers, decimal numbers. They are unlike decimals because they have different decimal places. This has 1 decimal place, this has 2 decimal places, and this has 3 decimal places. So they are called unlike decimals. Now, we can change unlike decimals into like decimals by adding zeros after the last decimal place. I'll show you an example. Let's look at 3.7 and 4.25. As you can see, they are unlike decimals. Now, how do we change these unlike decimals into unlike decimals? How can we change an unlike decimal into like decimal? We just need to look at the highest decimal place value. This has 2, this has 1. So just add a 0 after the last decimal place. So this becomes 3.70 and you keep this as it is, 4.25. As you can see, both these have 2 decimal places and therefore they are like decimals. This is how you can change an unlike decimal into a like decimal. If you're wondering, 3.7 and 3.70, are they the same? Yes, they are the same. 3.7 is nothing but 3 plus 7 by 10. This is how you write the expanded form. And 3.70 can be written as 3 plus 7 by 10. Remember, this is the 10th place and this is the 0 is in the 100th place. Alright. This is nothing but 3 plus 7 by 10 plus 0 by 100 is 0. So you can see 3.7 is 3 plus 7 by 10 and 3.70 is also 3 plus 7 by 10. So both 3.7 and 3.70 are the same. That is why we can write 3.7 as 3.70. Let's take another example to see how we can change unlike decimals into like decimals. Here, have a look at this one, 25.3 and 2.173. Now, can you tell me if these are like or unlike decimals? That's right, unlike decimals, because this has 1 decimal place and this has 3 decimal places, so they are unlike. How can we change this into like decimals? That's right, you can look at this. This has the highest decimal places of 3, so we need to make this also into 3 decimal places. How do we do that? Just add zeros after the last decimal place. How many zeros? 2 zeros. As you can see, this has 3 decimal places, and the next one you can write it as it is. Now both these decimal numbers have 3 decimal places and therefore they are like decimals. Remember, like decimals have the same number of decimal places and unlike decimals have different number of decimal places. Cool. In whole numbers like 3, 5, 7, putting any number of zeros before the highest place. If you put any number of zeros before the highest place, the value does not change, right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 3 is still 3, correct? You can put any number of zeros before the highest place in whole numbers. So in whole numbers, putting any number of zeros before the highest place does not change the value. But in decimals, have a look at decimals. In decimals, putting any number of zeros to the extreme right of the decimal part. That means if you put any number of zeros to the extreme right, let's take an example, 3.75. correct? You can put any number of zeros after the last decimal place or the extreme right, that is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. You can put how many ever zeros, it does not change the value. The answer is still 3.75. So this is the difference. In whole numbers, putting any number of zeros before the highest place doesn't make a difference. In decimals, putting any number of zeros to the extreme right of the decimal part doesn't make a difference. Remember that. Alright. Let's take an example of how you can write the expanded form from the decimal form. You have learned this in your earlier grades, but let's quickly revise. I'll give you an example. So what we are doing here is to write the expanded form of 137.892. Alright, how do we do the expanded form? All you have to do is to know the place value. Alright, so 1 is in the hundreds place, so 1 into 100, plus 3 is in the tens place, so 3 into 10, plus 7 is in the ones place, so 7 into 1. Alright, now this is where we get interesting after that. Remember, we've seen 8 is in the tenths place. So after 1, as you go to the right, the first decimal place value is the tenths place. That means you need to divide by 10, 8 by 10, plus this 9 is in the hundredths place, so that is 9 by 100, and 2 is in the thousandths place, that is 2 by 1000. That's it, as easy as that. So this is how you can write the expanded form of a decimal number. Now, how do you write the decimal number from an expanded form? Let's take an example. If this is the expanded form, 2 into 1000 plus 3 into 10 plus 1 plus 2 by 100 plus 3 by 1000. If this is the expanded form given, how do you write it as a decimal? Let's see. So let's start with the whole number part. So 2 into 1000, so that is 2000. After 1000, what should come? 100 should come, but 100 is missing. As you can see, there is no 100. So what do? We put a 0. Whatever place value is missing, you give the value as 0. After hundreds place, it is 10. So we have 10 and we have 3, 33. And then after tens place is ones place, we have 1. So it's 2031, and after that you put a decimal point, and then what should come? The tenths place should come. That means 0 something by divided by 10 should come, but that is missing here. So therefore we put that as 0. Then you have the hundredths place, we have 2, and then you have the thousandths place, we have 3. So this is how you can write the decimal form from the expanded form, 2031.023. Remember, wherever the missing place value is missing, you just have to put 0. Now tell me 253.253. If this is your decimal number, remember a decimal number has two parts, the decimal part and the whole number part. Which is your whole number part? That's right, this is your whole number part. And this is your decimal part. Alright, remember this. And now you tell me 176.005. If this is your decimal number, I'm going to underline a particular digit and you have to tell me what is the place value. What do you think is the place value of this? That's right, it's ones place. Yes, that's right, it's ones place. So the value is 6 into 1, that is 6. That's right. How about this one? 2.735. I underline 7. What is the place value of this digit? That's right, it's in the tenths place. Tenths place, correct? And if you have to write the value, it is 7 by 10 or 0.7. That's good. Alright, now let's see how we can change fractions to decimals. Now, we have already learned how to change a fraction with denominator 10, 100, 1000 into a decimal. We've seen that. If the denominator is 10, 3 by 10, you just have to write it as 0.3. If the denominator is 100, I'm giving you an example, you just write it as 0.76. And if the denominator is 1000, you just write it as 2.756. That means what can you observe from this? The number of zeros in the denominator indicate the number of decimal places. Here you have 10, 1 0, therefore you have 1 decimal place. Here for 100 you have 2 zeros, therefore you have 2 decimal places. And for 1000 we have 3 zeros, and therefore we have 3 decimal places. So number of zeros in the denominator indicate the number of decimal places. Now let's see how you can change other fractions into decimals. That is, without denominators 10, 100, 1000, how can we change those fractions into decimals? So there are two methods. Let's look at method 1. All right. Now, in this method, you just have to change the fraction, whatever fraction is given, to its equivalent fraction with the denominator of 10, 100, 1000 and so on. What do I mean by that? Let's take an example. If 1 by 2 is given, all right, how can you change this fraction 1 by 2 into an equivalent fraction with denominator 10, 100 or 1000? What do you think? That's right, multiply the numerator and denominator with 5. So 2 5s is 10. There you go, you got the denominator 10. So the numerator becomes 5. Now 5 by 10 is the equivalent fraction. Now you know how to write 5 by 10 as a decimal number. How do you write 5 by 10 as a decimal number? That's right, it's 0.5. 10 has only 1 0, so it's got 1 decimal place. Very good. How about, let's take another example. 3 by 4. Remember, the denominator has to be 10, 100 or 1000. Let's see. Can you think of 4 is a factor of 10, 100 or 1000? That's right, 100. Right? 4 into 25. Correct? And 3 into 25. That will become 75 by 100. That is the equivalent fraction with denominator 100. And this can be written as 0.75. Alright, let's take an example of 1 by 5. This is easy. That's right, you can multiply this with 2 because the denominator will become 10, right? Correct? You can see the factor of 10 is 5, so 5 2s are 10, 2 by 10. This can be written as 0.2, right? Very good. What about 13 by 4? Again, we can see, we can make the 4 into 25 and 13 into 25 because the factor of 100 can be written as 25 into 4. So 13 into 25 is 325 and this can be written as 3.25. Remember, 2 zeros, so do 2 decimal places and this becomes your whole number part. What about 8? 3 by 8, if denominator has 8. Yes, 1000. 1000 has 8 as one of its factors. So 8 into 125 is 1000. That's right. So you can multiply the numerator also with 125. 125 into 3 is 375. And this can be written as 0.375. 1000 has 3 zeros, so 3 decimal places. Now, from all these examples, what you can see is if the denominators are 2, 4, 5 and 8, right? If the denominators are 2, 4, 5 and 8, these denominators can be multiplied with 2 can be multiplied with 5, all right? 4 can be multiplied with 25, 5 can be multiplied with again 2 or 5 or anything else, 2 or what else, 5, 20, right, or 200, correct? And 8 can be multiplied with 125. So if you multiply, if the denominators are these, you can multiply with this so that you can get the denominators as 10, 100 and 1000, all right? That's how. So these kind of, if the fraction has these denominators, you can use this method. But if the denominator is something different, all right, then we will have to look at another method. Now there are other denominators also which can use this method. If the denominator is 20 or 25 or 125, all right. So I'm going to write down if the denominators are 2, 4, 5, 8, 20, 25 and 125, sorry, or 125. If the denominators are any of these, you can use method 1. Okay, that's because 10, 100, 1000 and so on, these numbers will have these as the factors, all right. So only if these numbers are the denominators, you can use method 1. What if the denominators are something different? What do? That's where we go to method 2, which is a commonly used method. All right, let's look at method 2. Method 2 is just division. All right, what we do is by dividing. This is how you can, by dividing you can change fractions to decimals. All right, let's take an example. 33 by 6. I'm going to tell you the steps. Okay, so here we can see that 33 is the dividend and 6 is your divisor. Now what are we trying to do? We are trying to change this fraction into its decimal form. So listen to these steps carefully. Step 1, what you need to do is to write the dividend as a decimal number up to 3 decimal places. What do I mean by that? Dividend is 33. So I'm going to write 33 as a decimal number with 3 decimal places. How can I write the dividend with 3 decimal places without changing the value? That's right. 0, 0, 0. Just add zeros because the value remains the same. So up to 3 decimal places, right? 3 zeros. This is your first step. The second step is you to divide with the whole number, that is 6, your divisor. All right, you do that. Now third step is, so this is how it is. Now let's do the division. 6 5s are 30. All right, so 3 comes here. Now listen to the third step. Third step is before you bring down the digit in the 10th place. All right, now we are coming into the decimal places. So the 10th place, before you bring the 0 down, you need to put a decimal point in the quotient. So I'm going to put a decimal point here after 5, and then you can bring this 0 down as it is. All right, now 6 into what is 30? 6 into 5 is 30. Perfect. And then you get the 0 as your remainder. All right, you can continue division till the third decimal place is brought down. You can either do that till the third decimal place is brought down, or you can stop when the remainder is 0. So we have stopped when the remainder is 0. All right, that's it. Now what is the answer? 33 by 6 can be written as 5.5. This is how you can do the conversion of a fraction into its decimal form. Let's take another example so that you will understand this method better. 176 by 9. All right, so the first step, I'm going to write the dividend as a decimal number up to 3 decimal places. So 176.000. All right, this has to be your first step, and then the second step is you do the division. Divided by 9. What is it? 9 ones are 9. 17 minus 9 is 8, and you can bring the 6 down because this is still the whole number part. 9 into 9 is 81. 86 minus 1 is 81 is 5. Okay. All right. Now we are done with the whole number part. Now we go into the decimal part. Before you bring the 0 down, that is the 10th place down, what do? Yes, you put a decimal point and then you can bring the 10th place down. So 9 into 5 is 45, and here the remainder is not 0, it's 5. So you bring the 100th place also down, that is the other 0 down. Again you write 9 5s are 45. Alright, 5, and then you bring the last 0, that is a 1000th 0 down. Again it is 9 5s are 45, and 5 is your remainder. Okay, so 176 by 9 can be written as, what is the decimal form for this? It's 19.555. This one. That is your answer. This is how you can change fractions to decimals. Now let's look at how we can change decimals to fractions. In fact, you have learned this also in your previous grades, but let's quickly recollect what we have learned. Changing decimals to fractions. I'll show this with an example. Let's take 3.5. How can you change this decimal into a fraction? Okay, so fraction will have a numerator and a denominator. Alright, so the first step for you to do is to look at we need to look at the number of decimal places. So here, as you can see, it's got only one decimal place. So that means if it's got only one decimal place, the denominator is 10. That's it. Right, you've done with the denominator. The second step for you is to write the number without the decimal point. That means remove the decimal point. So it is 35. That's it. 35 by 10. Alright, and this can be written as 35 by 10. Alright, we remember we need to always, a fraction should always be written in its simplest form. So as you can see, 35 by 10 can be written as 1 by 2. Right, so that means both you can divide by 5, which is the highest common factor, and that will give you 1 by 2. This is how you can change decimals to fractions. Alright, let's quickly take another example so that you can understand this better. 14.72. Now, why don't you also write this in your notebook and try solving this? How can you change this number, decimal number, into a fraction? Right, first I'm going to solve the denominator. What is the denominator? Since we have two decimal places, the denominator is 100. Perfect. And then the numerator is, write the number as it is without the decimal point, 1472. 1472 by 100 is the fraction, but this can be further written into its simplest form as 1472 by 100. Alright, again this can be further simplified as 18 by 25. That is, you can divide this with 4. Okay, and this becomes your simplest form, and this is how you can change this decimal number into a fraction. Okay, now how do we compare decimals? Alright, let's take an example. 6.437 and 6.57. How do we compare these two decimals? Alright, the first step is to always convert the decimals into like decimals. If they are, as you can see, they are unlike decimals because this has 3 decimal places and this has only 2 decimal places. So let's convert this into like decimals. How do we do that? We've seen it earlier. 6.437 is as it is, and here we write it as 6.570. Now they are like decimals because it's got 3 decimal places. Now what all you have to do is to just compare the digits corresponding to the place value. Alright, as you can see, starting from the whole number part, 6 is the same. Next is the 10th place. You have 4 and 5. That's it. So, as you can see, 5 is greater than 4. Therefore, 6.570 is greater than 6.437. That means 6.57 is greater than 6.437. this is how you can compare decimals. Change it into, if they are unlike decimals, change it into like decimals, and then just compare the place values starting from the whole number part. Alright, let's see how we can use decimals in metric measures and money. Alright, decimals are usually used in expressing metric measures and money. What do I mean by metric measures? It's measure of weight, measure of volume, and measure of distance. So we're going to see how we can use these decimals. Let's start with measure of weight. Measure of weight. Alright, so first 2 kgs 354 grams. Okay, if something weighs 2 kgs 354 grams, how do we write this in its decimal form? Alright, okay, so we can see that 2 kgs plus 354 grams, correct? Is fair enough? Alright, now 2 kgs plus 354 by 1000 kg. Alright, now how did I do that? We know, I'm going to write it here in the brackets. Okay, I'm going to show you how did I convert 354 grams into this 354 by 1000 kgs. Now 1000 grams is 1 kg. We all know that, we've seen it earlier. Okay, 1000 grams is 1 kg. Therefore 1 gram will be what? 1 divided by 1000 kg. Perfect. Or this can be written as a fraction. Remember, there are 3 decimal places, so it is 0.001 kg. Alright. Now 354 grams. We've seen for 1 gram. What is 354 grams? That will be 354 into 1 by 1000 kg. That's right. That's because 1 gram is this much. So 354 grams will be 354 into 1 by 1000. What is that? That will be 354 by 1000 kg, or you can also write it as 0.354 kg. Okay. Now, as you can see, now this is all the working. I just showed you the working of how 354 was written as 354 by 1000. Alright, from this step, now let's see. Now, this is nothing but 2 plus 354 by 1000 is nothing but, we've seen it earlier, it is 0.354 kg. Alright, now 2 plus 0.354 is 2.354 kgs. Alright, this is your answer. So 2 kgs and 354 grams can be written as 2.354 kg. Now you can see how decimals are used in metric measure of weight. Alright, so if something is given as 2.354 kgs, you should understand it is 2 kgs and 354 grams. Alright, let's take another example. How about if something weighs only 785 grams? How do you write this as a decimal? Alright, let's look at it. 1 gram, alright, we know that it's 1 by 1000 kg. Alright, so 785 grams will be what? 785 divided by 1000, correct? Kg. So that is nothing but 0.785 kg. There you go. This is how you can write it. 785 grams can be written as 0.785 kgs. You just need to do the conversion from grams to kgs. Alright, now let's look at measurement of length. Okay, we've seen measurement of weight earlier. Now let's see how decimals are used in measurements of length. Can you tell me what are the units of length, the commonly used units of length? That's right, we have kilometers, we have meters, we have centimeters. Let's take an example. Alright, let's see, 5 kilometers 372 meters. Let's say this is the distance from your house to the nearby shopping mall. 5 kilometers 372 meters. How do you write this as a decimal? Again, we have to write this as 5 kilometers plus 372 meters, that is 5 kilometers plus, remember 372 I can write it as 372 by 1000 kilometer. Again, I'm going to show you that quickly. How did we do that? How did we change 372 into 372 by 1000? We all know that 1000 meters makes 1 kilometer. That means 1 meter will be 1 by 1000 kilometers. Okay, but this is 1 meter, but we want 372 meters. That will be 372 into 1 by 1000 kilometer, which is nothing but 372 by 1000 kilometers, or this can be written also as 0.372 kilometers. Alright, so this is how I've written this. Now you just have to see, this is 5 kilometers plus 0.372 kilometer. Perfect. So this is 5.372 kilometers. Now let's take another example. 25 meters. How do we do this? It's pretty simple. So we know that 1 meter is 1 by 1000 kilometer. That's right. So 25 meter, if you have to write it as its decimal form, what do we write? It's 25 into 1 by 1000 kilometer. That is nothing but 25 by 1000 kilometer, which is nothing but 0.025 kilometers. So 25 meter can be written as 0.025 kilometers. You can see how decimals are used as a measure of length, right? Alright, we've seen measure of weight, measure of length, and now let's look at the measure of volume. How are decimals used here? Okay, let's take an example again. 3 liters 45 ml. Let's say this is the amount of water that you need to fill, 3 liters 45 ml. How can we write this as a decimal number? All right, let's expand. 3 liters plus 45 ml, that is 3 liters plus 45 ml can be written as 45 by 1000 liters. Again, how did I do this? The same conversion of 1000 ml. Milliliters makes 1 liter, we know that, right? So 1 milliliter is nothing but 1 by 1000 liters, but we don't need 1 milliliter, we need 45 milliliters. So 45 milliliters will be 45 into 1 by 1000 liters, that is nothing but 45 by 1000 liters, that is nothing but 0.045 liters. Okay, so 3 liters plus 0.045 liters, that is nothing but 3.045 liters. You see, 3 liters 45 ml can be written as 3.045 liters. So the next time you see this 3.045 liters, remember it is 3 liters and 45 milliliters. Now what about money? How are decimals used here, right? Let's take an example. 75 rupees and 50 paise. I'm not sure if you've seen a paise, but there are 50 paise coins that you can see. You can ask your parents and they'll show you. So 75 rupees and 50 paise. How do we write that as a decimal? So it's rupees 75 plus 50 by 100 rupees. All right. Now, how did I convert 50 paise to this? Again, for that we need to know that 100 paise is nothing but 1 rupee. Okay. So 1 paise will be 1 by 100 rupee. Therefore, 50 paise will be 50 into 1 by 100 rupee, that is nothing but 50 by 100 rupees, or you can write it as 0.50 So we're going to use this here. So this is 75 rupees plus 0.5 rupees. All right, 0.50 is the same as 0.5, and this becomes 75.50 rupees. So if you see 75.50 rupees anywhere, you should know that it means 75 rupees and 50 paise. Here's another example. What if it is only 750 paise? How can you write this as a decimal form? Let's try. 750 into 1 by 100 rupees. That's right. Again, I'm writing that because 1 paise is nothing but 1 by 100 rupees. All right. So 75 paise, 750 paise will be 750 into 1 by 100, and this will become what? 750 by 100, which is nothing but 7.50. This is how you use decimals in metric measures. We've seen it in weight, we've seen it in length, we've seen it in volume, and we've also seen it in money. So that's it for today, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed the class and you learned a lot about decimals. Now, what do you need to do? That's right, you need to practice. And after every concept, there are a lot of questions given. I want you to take time, go ahead and answer as many questions as possible. Please take the help of your teacher or your parent and get it right. If needed, watch the video again and also read the lesson. I hope you get really good at decimals and you will practice and you will become perfect in decimals. Have a great day. Bye-bye.